Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another installment of Show to V with Mike G, the show of life, the show of Chihuahua, the show of accounting, horror films, and above all else, Sotol. Now, Sotol is a very, very small market. I do not care which article you read that says it will be the next big thing. It will not be the next big thing, no matter how beautiful, no matter how delicious Sotol is, no matter how much fake protesting goes on to preserve Sotol. It will not be a massive spirit, but again, it will always be beautiful and it will always be delicious, and no one knows that better than Jorge Caldera of Parejo Sotol. This interview with Jorge is years in the making. I met him some years ago when he was working on a project called Clande Sotol. Things happened there. Jorge moved on and evolved, and now he has these beautiful sotoles coming from Chihuahua. There's some that have agave, different families, different maestros, but Parejo Sotol is one of my favorites that I've ever tasted, and we sip through these as we discuss Jorge's life. And there is, I don't want to say it's a trigger warning, but there's some, I will call it, interesting depictions of violence and injury that we discuss in this conversation. So many years in the making. Really lovely to meet Jorge. So without further ado, I hope you enjoyed this great conversation with Jorge Caldera of Parejo Sotol.
So if I'll be really honest with you, and actually it's not about me.
Of course.
It's about these guys. So it's really hard because you have to put words describing and talking about people that I would say that they're my extended family.
Yeah.
So it's really hard because I know it's a responsibility of trying to put like those stories and make people understand. I always tell people, like, don't look at the label.
Mm-hmm.
Like, try to imagine what took place before that.
Yeah.
So our label is basically just putting a stamp of approval that this is a good use. But at the end of the day, it's like it's been so much behind the bottle that you have to always think about that thing.
Yeah.
And that's why we always share so much information in our labels.
Yeah.
Because we want people to know that there is more to it than meets the eye.
That's right.
So yeah, it's pretty hard.
So that's a great point, because in a way you're a liaison, right? You're a diplomat.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was just having this conversation while the other day. Some people that I wanted to come into Austin, like, why? It's going to take 2 years for me to get a visa to come into the States.
Yeah.
It's very difficult in Mexico. And so you have that ability. What do you think is the responsibility you have for the producers in telling their story? Do they have any expectation for you? Like, well, Jorge, will you say this about this?
So this is a fun story, and one of the things I've learned through working with these producers, it's like, I remember one time I was with the Arrietas over in the desert, and we were having a couple of sotoles, just a couple, while we were distilling. And for me, it was like a pivotal moment in my journey in the Sotol, because one of the earlier of them asked me, Jorge, first of all, this guy, he's been doing Sotol for like 60 something years.
Wow.
And he told me, Jorge, how can I do this better? I'm like, fuck.
Whoa. The process better? The flavor better?
And I was like, no. I cannot tell you how to do it better. It's like, I'm starting to learn from you. And I thought about this moment so many times in my life, because just imagine Like a guy, like a
Yeah.
truly master, a truly expert that's been doing this craft for all of his life, asking like the young one, the guy that's
Wow.
nearly dipped his toes about how to do it better.
Mm-hmm.
Like they would like tell me like, screw you, man, like you don't
Yeah.
know nothing. And I was like, no, 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 but I cannot tell you how to do it better. It's like, I'm learning. And he was like, no, no, no. What you don't understand is that I've been doing this all of my life
Mm.
and I've struggled to sell it. I've struggled for people to understand it.
Wow.
And for the first time in my life, I've seen people starting to appreciate Sotol. So you are doing something that I need to learn. And I told him, let's make this. You do what you do best, and I'll try to do what I do good. And she was like, okay, let's
Wow.
do it like that.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I still to this day think about that every moment
Mm.
I drink a little bit of Sotol from them because it changed my life.
Knowing that kind of your role besides as a brand owner and you've got partners and there's the distribution, there's tastings, there's all of this. But one of the first things you said when we started recording is this isn't about me. And that very well may be true. But being the person that can talk about and be the lens into these sotoleros' lives and the places, is that something that you enjoy doing? Being on stage, so to speak, talking about the stories, bringing other people that maybe have never even tried Sotol in
Uh,
to these places.
I love it. It's like I found that missing link in my
Mm.
life.
Mm.
I found a purpose. And first of all, I'm gonna tell you a little story. So, when they first distilled the Sotol,
Yeah.
they call it vino.
Yeah.
Vino. And the place where they distill, it's called a vinata.
Mm-hmm.
And they themselves, when I just met them, they call themselves vinateros.
Yeah.
Vinateros. And this is really interesting because we always like to go with the cultural heritage
Mm-hmm.
because we'll go into some pretty different things, which is like, for example, lechuguilla,
Yeah.
and they don't use agave lechuguilla, and the regions they use it and everything. But yeah, to answer your question, like it's an honor to represent not only like them, but a plant, my state,
Mm-hmm.
my my country. It's like I feel the pressure, but I feel I want to give justice to it
Yeah.
because what I've learned is Sotol is a really terroir heavy spirit
Yeah.
because it's all wild harvest, wild fermented, 18-year-old plant.
Mm-hmm.
So it's telling a story. No, it's telling two stories. First, the story of the plant.
Mm.
Second, the story of the maestro. So I'm like inviting people to get to know where I grew,
Yeah.
the different parts I've met, and I have the pleasure to come and go once in a while, which is great.
Do you feel, and I'm sure I know the answer to this, but Sotol, even though it's made in Durango and Coahuila as well, at least under law, there's not a lot of Sotol that comes from there. The majority comes much like Oaxaca, right? The mezcal. Chihuahua is the heart of Sotol. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it is. And if you go historically, like on the peak of the production,
Mm-hmm.
it was during the 30s, and the numbers were pretty big.
I've heard massive things that the government actually destroyed a lot of Sotol in favor
Exactly.
for Europe. That's a story that a lot of people don't understand.
No, and interesting, fun story. It's like, why would you think that during the 30s we were producing so much Sotol?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what happened during the 30s? Prohibition.
Yeah.
So there's a figure many people haven't heard about her. Her name is Maria la Bandida.
Okay.
So long story short, the Villistas, Pancho Villa,
Mm-hmm.
there was a guy called El Bandido,
Mhm.
and this was a custom that they stole women, so he stole her. That's why she was La Bandida.
Okay.
But when this guy, he was taking her to Ciudad de Mexico, but when this guy got to Zacatecas, they killed him, and she was like a little girl, like 14 years old, and she
Oh.
was like, what am I doing? Like, I don't know nobody here. Well, this guy was going to take me to Ciudad de Mexico. I'm going to Ciudad de Mexico. And I don't know why, but she started to put like bordels,
Okay.
high category ones.
Yeah.
And one of his clients was, so they say, Al Capone.
Oh.
And she was like, well, you need booze? In my town, they make booze.
Oh, wow.
And they've told me, like, people from the towns told me that, like, the train used to stop in Janos, and people, like, fill the train with all premium Sotol, great stuff in barrels, and they would label it as whiskey.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Is that, you know how there's in the Sierra de Juarez, I think that's where it was, there was a whiskey distillery? Like,
Oh,
but
yeah.
I say, were they actually making Sotol there?
I don't know in that particular one, but I've seen with historians from Chihuahua, like they have really old labels of Sotol, and they are labeled as whiskey.
Oh man,
yeah,
that's incredible.
And
And that's the thing that Sotol, I find it hard over the years when I do these interviews. I get so much. There's a little bit of information here, a little bit here, right? But there's not a book about it. There's not like a single book at least about Sotol. But I had learned from the maestros, and they tell me stories and stuff. So it's really, Sotol was much bigger in the 30s than it is now.
Yeah, so interesting fact, and a little bit of like a downer. It's like, and this has happened historically in Mexico. Like when big brands come and other things, they start to talk shit about the real things, our heritage. And it happened with pulque.
Yeah.
Like they were like, yeah, pulque is cheap. Like they use like babies' diapers to ferment it, and things that isn't true. Like with the Sotol, they were like, there's donkey there. They cheat on the fermentation, but it's really bad. It's gonna let you blind. Yeah. And even worse than Sotol, Lechuguilla, people were like, oh, that thing's gonna make you go crazy. People kill with each other with machetes.
Really?
When I started, like back in 2015, was the first time I got to try real Sotol. But that was February 26th. I still remember that day. And like people were like, be really careful about that. Like you can go blind. And I was like, what? No, I had to struggle to re-educate people about the amazing thing that Sotol is, because people didn't want to try it.
But let's put that in perspective real quick. That was 2015.
Yeah.
That wasn't even 10 years ago.
No,
people still carry these rumors about it. I had no idea it was that recent.
Well, up to this date, like I made a tasting like a couple of months ago. And when I switched from Sotol to Lechuguilla, there was a lot of people that, oh, no. Whoa, what's this? No, I don't know if I want to try this. I was like, no, man.
Whoa.
Like, check over every like bad knowledge she had before. I want to introduce you to a really good friend of mine, which is Lechuguilla.
Yes.
It's like, you don't have to fear it. And people like, it's still a struggle.
That is so crazy to me to think that's.
And going back to like when I started, like one of the most interesting and amazing things was when I got to be in the States for the first time, like with in those times with Clande.
Yeah.
And people like they even knew more than in my town. Like they were like, oh yeah, that's Tacilirium, right? And I'm like, yeah, it's not an agave, right? Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I'm with my people now.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that there's so much to learn, and we'll talk about some of the differences, because I think even though you and I understand the differences between Sotol and Lechuguilla is a real distant frontier for a lot of people in agave, right? So they're like, I know what I see, that's kind of got its thing, and then Sotol and mezcal. But yeah, I definitely want to talk about that. But going back further, before 2015, when you had maybe your first compelling experience with Sotol, you were born and raised in Chihuahua?
Yeah, born and raised in Chihuahua, capital.
Okay.
Yeah, all of my life I've been there, and like I love my city. But this is the thing, and I'll be honest with you. It's like when I was young, like maybe I've read about other towns, and I was like, oh yeah, in this town, and you probably thought that there was better places.
Mm.
But in true Sotol, I learned to love my land.
Mm.
And one thing I always tell people, it's like, for example, I had to relearn the definition of luxury. Like when I was
Right,
young,
right.
there was like a misconception of what luxury was.
Okay,
They sold you like a false image, like
okay.
this successful guy with a business suit drinking some Johnny Walker Blue or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, and he was like powerful and this and that. And I've learned to these people that the real definition of luxury is knowing the name of the maker
Oh,
of the
yeah.
thing you're trying.
I love that.
Because when you learn that, you really understand that it is a luxury to have the connection with that guy. Nowadays, that everything's so big.
Yes. You're removed further and further and further from it. Yeah.
Exactly. You start to buy marketing
Mm-hmm.
instead of a maker.
Yes.
Like some guy that's actually putting his soul and sweat into something.
Yeah. That's a privilege too.
Oh yeah,
You know?
definitely. Not many people have the privilege of drinking good stuff.
Yeah.
Even coffee, like knowing
Milk,
your
right,
roaster,
right.
knowing the guy that grew the plants over there
Mhm.
and harvest them. Like that's really luxury, man.
I love that view on it. As a younger guy, because you obviously have the capacity to run a business, you're very well spoken. Were you more into math? Were you more into creative writing? What kinds of things did you enjoy?
Okay, when I was young, I've always loved music.
Yeah.
So
You said you're a failed guitar player, but maybe we
yeah.
can bring that back. Maybe we can get you to.
Actually, I tried to do that like 5 years ago.
Uh-huh.
I bought a new guitar, and I always wanted a Fender guitar, a
Yeah,
Stratocaster.
that's right,
I
yeah.
loved Jimi Hendrix, so
Yeah.
it had to be Olympic white and
Uh-huh.
everything. And I'm like, yeah, this is going to be the motivation I
Did you?
need.
You're right-handed, right?
Yeah, right.
Did you flip it though? Because he's a
Oh
lefty,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I would,
No, this is
but
deep cut,
if
but-
not, I'm not that able to like
play it
play
with-
it the right way.
Yeah.
So I don't want to play in hard mode.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I know I couldn't. But maybe one day, maybe.
Yeah.
But I had an early retirement. I did had a band. I did play
Did
some
you really?
gigs. Yeah, but I was like in high school. So,
Still.
mm.
That's where you get started, though.
Oh yeah, definitely. But at the end of the day, so I was like, I'm not gonna be so good at this, so let's switch things. I study finances.
Okay.
I used to be a stockbroker
Oh,
when I
in
was
Chihuahua
young.
still?
Or
Mexico City?
No, I left that
Okay.
because at the end of the day, it was like I really loved it. I love stocks,
Uh-huh.
but it was like I'm making money for other people.
Ah.
And I would really like to like make jobs for people.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to give a 180 on that and change my life.
About how old were you when you made that decision?
That was around 2007 or
7,
8.
okay.
Yeah.
What, late 20s for you? Early 30s? Yeah. I think, I mean, I'm not going to ask, but I can kind of see maybe. I think I'm still older than you, but either way, we both look good for our age. Whatever the age is, right?
Yeah. Well, I believe the secret is not having children. Not that I endorse it.
Absolutely agree. No. Let's drink to that. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's exactly how I feel every day. I get up and do what I want to do.
I always tell Beto that you age like a dog when you start getting dogs. So 7 years for every 1 year of me. Just joking, Beto, but yes.
Beto's getting gray. I don't know.
He got 3 children, so
that's gonna make it expedite everything. So, in this journey, when you realize you're wanting to do something for yourself and create jobs for other people, probably based on your ideas, your projects, your insight, and if you're good with finances, of course, you can kind of make that happen. Before you kind of had a foray into Sotol, did you start any companies that were yours? What kinds of industries?
So at the beginning, the first company I made was actually when I was still studying, and with a good friend of mine, Pavel, we started a marketing company.
Oh, okay.
So I endeavor into like Photoshop, Illustrator, like Adobe, the package
Yeah,
so
sure.
we started like making logos and everything. I will always been really big into photography, so it was like I still remember like the first time like that was like back in 2000 or 98 or
Oh
99
yeah.
when I first started learning Corel Draw.
Oh my
But
gosh.
it was like
That's a long
I
time ago.
taught myself how
Yeah,
to
same,
like
same.
Photoshop, Illustrator. I've learned myself. I
Mm-hmm.
used to program also.
Really?
I taught myself to
What, Visual
program.
Basic back
Yeah,
then?
Visual Basic. Yeah, a little bit of Pascal.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was way back, way back.
Wow, yeah.
I've never programmed again,
Yeah.
but I really like that. A little bit of XML also,
No,
like
good.
making websites, but way back. So we started that. We like dip our toes into what was having a business. We
Mm.
even had like an office, and that sounded really
Is this still in
professional.
Chihuahua when you were
Yeah,
doing?
that
Okay.
was back in Chihuahua. I've always lived there.
Okay.
Yeah, I studied there, lived there, worked there. Yeah, but well, it was just like a year.
Mm.
Then I had my first like sort of like successful sort of like business. I started a magazine,
Hmm.
and that was what when we switched into what I love, like photography.
Yeah.
So it
What
was
kind?
a social events magazine,
Oh, I see.
but
Okay.
it was such a hustle. Like
Yeah.
I published two magazines per month,
Oh my goodness. Okay.
a 98-page magazine twice a month, and like I only had like 4 people staff.
Yeah.
So
Oh my
it
gosh.
was a hustle.
How long were you doing? How many editions did you finally put out?
Oh,
'Cause
after the first year,
yeah.
we switched to monthly.
Okay.
Because I was going to
That's
go
you
crazy.
put out 24
Yeah,
editions. Wow.
yeah, it was a lot, and we started to get so much notoriety that one of the big papers over there in Chihuahua, El
Mhm.
Diario,
Mhm.
they hired me to restructure the social events part of their paper
Oh wow.
to like make it better.
Mhm.
And we started to like chip our magazine in their paper to their subscribers and
Oh
everything.
wow.
Yeah. Long story short, it didn't end it well because my then business partner
Mhm.
liked the idea so much that he felt entitled to it,
Ah,
and he
okay.
took it from me. And I it was like I was like, yeah, I don't know, but well, he used to be a really good friend of mine.
Yeah.
I believe he thought it was more important for him to
Mm.
have money than a friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that was that.
I mean, I'm just gonna say this maybe is a theme I'm seeing. Um, but to that end, you bounced back.
Yeah.
Did you shift gears again and go into a different industry or start something else?
So interesting thing. Yeah, I started something else. I started a little bit into digital marketing
Mm-hmm.
in 2009,
Okay.
2010, and that's when I started to learn about Mexican distilled spirits.
Really? What was that introduction like?
So I started managing the marketing for a Sotol brand from Chihuahua.
Is it the one I think it is?
Yeah, probably. And that's how I started to learn about Mexican distilled spirits.
Can I ask another question? And I'll keep somebody nameless this whole interview, even though we
Okay.
both know who it is. Is that where you met this person?
No.
Was that before that?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I know that this person also worked at this place. If I'm thinking of the same
Yeah.
hacienda, but that's okay. I mean, they are a brand. We all know it, and whether we like it or not is a whole different thing. You know.
So at the end of the day, like, I'm not able to talk bad about any brand because they've all brought something good into the market.
Right,
Like,
right.
for example, if you go way back to Cuervo,
Mm-hmm.
if Cuervo didn't have the budget and the balls to bring tequila to
Yeah.
the States, probably tequila would be unheard of, sort of like Sotol.
Yeah.
I don't
yeah.
know, but they open so many doors.
I agree.
And then when we talk about like Patron, it's like I don't personally drink it, but they've done so much because they taught people that yeah, there's like another thing in tequila, and they don't have to be $6, the bottles.
Mm-hmm.
You can buy a $35, a $45 bottle.
Yeah.
And people were like, oh, and it's different.
Yeah.
So that opened so much doors. And then people like started to endeavor and they were like, oh, well, there's also mezcal.
Mm-hmm.
There's raicilla, there's bacanora, and now there's Sotol. And yeah, even though it's another plant, but it's like
Still
it's
part
Mexican
of
distilled spirits.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why when I talk about the category. So Mexican distilled spirits.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many, but more than the differences we have, I like to like focus in the similitudes. Similitudes. It's like, for example, I always tell people one thing. Sotol.
Yeah.
How do they call them in Texas?
Wow.
Desert spoon, right?
Wow. That actually is like 4 or 5 people.
Oh yeah, well, but way
But
back,
you're right, you're
the
right.
Cowboys,
The Cowboys, that's right,
used to
yeah.
call it desert spoon,
Yeah.
and that was because they used the end of the leaves as a spoon.
It's a spoon, yeah.
And in Oaxaca, how do they call it?
Cucharillo.
Because cuchara is a
It's
spoon.
yeah.
They used to use them also as spoons, and it's like nowadays when we focus about differences, I like to see what we have
in
common.
Yeah, I love that because I think that there's a lot of finger pointing because this happens over here and this happens over here, and there's just it's just the differences of language. So we are sipping a Sotol. You brought some special stuff, but tell me what we just were sipping.
Okay, so this is an interesting thing because I wanted you to try some of the things that are in the future coming to the market.
You said experimental.
Experimental batches. And experimentally it is. So this first one, this is the Hermanos Arrieta. So the Hermanos Arrietas are a couple of brothers based out of the desert of Chihuahua.
Which city specific or closest city?
Right now they're in Aldama. But
Okay,
this is Mario and Chuy. So Mario is in charge of the harvesting, and Chuy is in charge of the distillation.
Got it.
So, but it is an experimental batch because this is the first time they endeavor in a different type of oven. So this is a bóveda oven. So
what is that?
So stone pit ovens. The difference here is that you have a lower level where they add the fuel. So the idea being
below it?
Below it.
Oh, okay.
This way you don't generate that much smoke, and also it's a little bit in their mind more efficient.
That's right.
Yeah. So you can taste the difference. It does taste different.
It's very clean. Right.
You said a little bit of saltiness.
Yeah, very
and
salty.
it does. For me, like the Terragen desert, you always get those mineral notes.
Yeah.
A little bit of sometimes even in the smell petrichor.
Yeah.
Which I love to talk about the story of petrichor because if you have ever been in the desert and started raining, that bacteria that goes into the air, love it, and I can smell it here, and I love it.
It probably will escape me. I just had a conversation about petrichor, and the bacteria is actually in something that we eat too pretty regularly.
Oh, really?
There's a food that we eat every day, and it has this strange. I can't remember what it was. Some kind of vegetable.
I would love to learn.
I didn't realize
story.
that petrichor was in there too. But I think you're right. There is something about the way that it smells after raining. I used to live in Phoenix.
Oh yeah.
And the monsoon is crazy, and then that copper comes up, and then you have all this kind of interesting stuff. Thank you.
But actually, right now we're switching gears. So the lechuguillas we bring to the States have mainly been by Juan Fernandez, who is Bienvenido's brother. So Bienvenido is sort of like a rock star over here. And going back to what rock stars is, real rock stars work with rocks like this guys. The other type of rock stars, they don't even carry their gear.
You're okay. You're absolutely right. But they do probably do a little bit of crack, so that's a rock. So, depending what kind of band and if it was in the 80s or not.
Exactly. So this is a lechuguilla by Bienvenido Fernandez. An interesting thing, this is a different type of agave. So every time we talk about lechuguilla is not only made in Chihuahua.
Right.
Lechuguilla is made in Sonora, in Jalisco.
Jalisco too?
Jalisco.
Okay.
Usually with Maximiliana and other type of agaves. But in Chihuahua, mainly when they work with an agave-based spirit, and it doesn't have to be 100% agave. Actually, it's rarely 100% agave.
Just like 51%, right?
Eh,
Of the agave over Sotol, or
Depending on the zone. Like, for example, Batopilas is one of the main Lechuguilla regions. And they have like their guidelines like pretty well set. So that's going to be always a 90% agave, 10% Sotol.
Okay.
And also the agaves are capones.
Okay.
And the other thing is like they have their guidelines pretty well set. Interesting thing, they say they use the Sotol for fermentation purposes.
I've heard that. I've heard the opposite too, where they use the agave for the fermentation process.
So yeah, that takes us to Bienve.
Okay.
So one time I was with Bienvenido and I was just starting working with him. And I was like, hey, Bienve, that's agave. He was like, no, that's cereque. Cereque is the word for Sotol by the Raramuris. The thing is, as I told you, Lechuguilla, people thought shit about it. So he was like, I don't want him to know that I'm doing Lechuguilla because probably he's going to think that I'm doing bad things. And I was like, no, Bienve, that's agave, man. Like, my family, man. He was like, okay. Well, I do something called churiqui because he calls it churiqui. So churiqui, another Raramuri word that basically means agave.
Yeah.
Interesting thing, they call all of the agaves churiqui. All of the species.
Okay.
Like, I've been with him and like a really big agave, and he's like, that churiqui. And a really small one that's ready for harvest. That churiqui also.
Yeah.
The only agave they call differently is going to be agave parray. And they do not use that agave to make lechuguilla or churiqui.
Okay.
They call that maguey.
Maguey.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh yeah, well, it's so complex but simple.
How long did it take? Because the language here and those the regional differentiations and the way that people talk about the name of the distillates, like you got Tuxca, you got Tepe. There's all these different kinds of things. They're just hyper regional. When you first started drinking Sotol, did you feel maybe not overwhelmed because you're smart, you can grasp the concepts, but did you find it really, really vast? Like that it didn't maybe make as much sense to you when you started? These different words, these different plants.
It was a little bit overwhelming, but I loved it. And at the end of the day, for me, the most important thing is going to be the cultural value behind that.
Yeah.
Now, I always ask them, how did your grandfather set the name of this thing? This is the still spirit. Like, even though I respect the oath, at the end of the day, what's behind a DO, like the purpose, sometimes doesn't go with the cultural heritage.
That's right.
The other thing is like, for example, so with these guys, I always try to interview them and understand the story behind. So this is going to be an agave, well, maguey de cerro. So maguey de cerro, different type of agave. They use a lot of different agaves. I've been working with them to like identify the species. We also get agave cenizo in Chihuahua. Yeah, plants don't know borders, so they grow wherever they want, and they've migrated over to Chihuahua, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing because we get to try amazing stuff. And this agave, or this maguey de cerro, if you taste it, for me, it has like frankincense in it. It's really, like patchouli. It's amazing. I love it. It's something really out there. It's really different. It's something that I've never tried the lechuguilla from Bienve that tasted like this. Like usually with Bienve, I know it's Bienve, but with Parejo, we've released a lot of Bienve that don't taste like Bienve.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. Like quoting a guy I admire, Rick Rubens, his last book, he said a word I loved it. And he said that a guy that comes and creates something today is not going to be the same guy that comes the next day to create something.
Yes.
Because we change day by day. And change is a good thing. And like I learned that from the Mexican distilled spirits. Like they're never going to be the same.
Yeah.
But that is a good thing.
I love that. And I love Rick Rubin is in terms of a producer and how he's really become kind of a sage as he gets older
Oh
and
yeah.
giving advice to the artists and all that. This is one of the most different destilados I've ever had. I
Oh,
love that you said frankincense because then I'm like, well, then myrrh too. These other
oh yeah.
saps,
Yeah.
resins,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
there's really a nice acidity too that
Oh yeah.
glides on top. So there's
Yeah.
the citrus, but that resin and that thickness, that plant
And
matter.
you get a little bit of beeswax in the retro. Like you
Yeah,
even
that's
get it
great.
like when I don't know if you've ever like do an old school like seal with wax and
Uh huh.
everything.
Yeah,
I get it like in the front of my tongue, a little bit like waxy.
that's
I love
I
it.
love it. I think these are beautiful words for this. So a lot of things, you've had quite a few companies, one of which we know about is Clande. But there was a moment for you as a man where I don't want to say that you were close to death, but you were there pursuing the thing you love out in the desert, showing people the plants and everything, and you have a health mishap in the desert. Tell me more about that. I thought that was pretty riveting.
Okay, yeah, and interesting thing. I don't know. February for me, like it's like pivotal points in my life.
February
Six.
26th, February 4th is my birthday.
Oh, really?
So yeah,
Okay,
February's great,
okay,
Jorge.
okay. Well, for me, it's been ups and lows. So
Yes.
this was, I believe, the 28th of February, 2018.
Wow.
I was with a couple of friends, a friend from Chicago. I was taking him over to Chorreras.
Mm-hmm.
And then asking the people in the town, I've heard there was a lot of agaves in a nearby place called La Cola del Diablo, something like that. I don't
Mm.
remember the name.
Yeah.
So we had to go there and we had
Yeah.
to see the agaves. They were amazing. I don't know the species. They sort of look like pulqueros.
Uh-huh. Very tall?
Very tall. But they were really. They had like an infestation or something, so
Oh.
probably you're not going to be able to get something good. I don't know, but
Yeah.
maybe one day we'll try it before they finish their cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Well, better to transform them into something good than let them die.
Better to have loved than
Uh-huh.
to never love.
Yeah. So going back, a guy, he had a drone and he wanted to show off. The battery was running low. Long story short, it went down and he was like, it's really expensive. Let's go get it. And I'm like, oh, fuck you. Okay. So we started going through the mountains, and in a point, like my left foot started slipping. I anchored myself with my right foot.
Was it very steep where you were?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was the mountains.
Sure.
Uh-huh,
Okay.
uh-huh.
So yeah.
And my right foot like started turning, and it was upside down. And remember in Mel Gibson, I was like, I have to pull it forwards, and I grabbed it.
Oh, you talking about
and-
Lethal Weapon 2?
Exactly,
with the straight jacket?
the
Okay.
shoulder. Yeah.
Okay, I
So
know what you're talking
and I put it right again.
Oh, did it make a noise?
Yeah,
Oh.
but it didn't hurt. But I was like, okay, it's not hurting. This is gonna fucking hurt in a couple of minutes. So I
Uh-huh.
need to do something right now. So I straightened it up, and like my friend was like, "Did you just did what I just saw?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he was like, "And how do you feel?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I'm gonna try to walk." No, it was luxated, so it was
Oh my God.
like hanging. We're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like it took me like 8 hours to get to a hospital
How far? Because did you go out there in a Jeep or a truck or something?
in a truck.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's like, first of all, just to reach the truck,
Truck. Yeah.
and they had to carry me
Yeah.
because I wasn't able to like to walk, and it took us like 1.5 hours to get to the truck.
All right.
Just that. Then we got to the town, to Chorreras,
Mm-hmm.
and we had to like wake up the nurse.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have nothing for, like, she was like, so I can give you an aspirin.
Oh, jeez.
And literally that's what what she gave me. And she sort of like she used the old school band, like, how do you call them, like, that go really hard when you when you put
Yeah,
more water
cast.
on it. Yeah, a cast, but the old style.
Mm.
And she like tried to immobilize my foot, uh, but she didn't do a great job. So later I learned that it almost gave me gangrene,
Oh my
and they
gosh.
were considering cutting my foot off. So yeah, and when I got there, it's like they weren't able to even operate on me
Mm,
because all of the trauma my foot had endured. So, like, the doctor explained to me, like, I had multiple of internal lacerations because of like the bones. They never like popped out.
sure, just
No,
inside we're
but
cutting up.
inside they were cutting me. So, and I don't want to
Not do
discuss
it.
you,
You see all my
but
horror movie posters?
yeah, no, but you see my foot, and
Yeah,
it has a lot of bruises.
yeah.
They were internal and they came out. I don't know
Interesting.
why that happened. But so what I tell people, that was like my catharsis. So
Yes.
that was like a pivotal moment in my life because I had to be in bed for 3 months.
Mm,
I wasn't able to get up. I like not even going to the bathroom. So
mm.
you start to learn that like there's some luxury
Yeah,
you have in
luxury
life.
again. Yeah,
Uh-huh. The until you lose that privilege, you lose them. And
yeah.
also, like, it was really hard. It was really hard. I still remember like the first time like starting to walk because I had to learn to walk again.
Yeah.
And that seems like silly, but we do so many stuff that are so complex with our body, like talking and walking,
Yeah.
that when you have to learn them again as an adult, you're like, how the fuck did I did it before?
Yeah.
It sounded so easy, and it's like, no, you have to like first foot front, the other one, you have to lean it over. It's like it's so much of a mechanical things you have to think about and do them, and it was really hard, man.
How long did it take? So you said you were in the hospital for 3 months. Was that including rehabilitation and stuff?
Yeah, no. In the hospital, I was for 1 month.
Or
Then,
okay, got it.
then I was out and I was in my house in my bed for 2 other months.
I see.
Going to, I only went to rehabilitation.
Yeah.
That was the only trips I had to take out,
Okay.
which was really hard.
I imagine.
And then I started like walking. So around June, July was when I started like walking with no, I believe I don't remember
I
all
mean,
the
I
months,
can't. I
but yeah.
would. It's a lot.
But
Yeah.
I started like first with how do you call them, like
Crutches?
crunches, yeah. Then a walking stick, and
How long before you didn't have to use anything?
until my birthday in October.
This year?
No, that no,
Of 18?
that year, yeah,
22?
2018, yeah,
October 16th?
15,
15th. Okay.
yeah.
My mom's at 13th.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. I remember numbers. And so this is something I saw. You saw your birthday. But
Okay.
it, what was, because obviously starting Parejo probably came from some of this clarity and, as you said, catharsis. What were some other things that you learned about yourself when you're in that moment where really you just have to lay down and think, right?
Yeah. So first of all, like the Clande days, they were really hard. Many people don't know the backstory, but we used to travel a lot.
Yeah.
But it's like our budget was 0, and it
Mm-hmm.
was like we used to like backpack with bottles of Clande,
Sure.
and every bottle we sold, it was a little bit of more gas to get to the place we needed to get.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there was no budget for a hotel,
Yeah.
but in the States, not like you can sleep in your car. It's like you're
Right.
gonna go into jail. So like many people like, hey, can we sleep over or this and that? It was
That's
it was
punk rock,
hard.
man.
Yeah.
That is, it's just like the touring life when you're younger.
Oh yeah, yeah,
You know?
definitely. But for me, this was like my life saying like, slow down.
Mm,
You need to slow down, and you need to rethink things,
yeah.
and you need to like pay attention. And I started to pay attention, and like it's pretty easy to connect one and two when you're like in the bed
Mm-hmm.
all the time thinking, rethinking. Like
Mm.
for example, I've learned through that experience that I have a really high tolerance to pain,
Okay.
because when I got to the hospital, the doctor was like, "Your foot's fine. If you would have had a broken foot you would have passed out of the pain. Like nobody can endure that pain for 6 hours, 8 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And when he saw that I have multiple fractures, and he was like, "I don't know how you're here. You have to go to a hospital like as quickly as possible, man."
Yeah.
And I was almost passing out like 2 other times from pain because they had to like readjust my foot
Yeah.
without putting anything for the pain.
Ugh.
When I got to the hospital, they saw that it was almost going into gangrene,
Mm-hmm.
they had to readjust it, and they didn't do a good job. They had to do it a third time. Well,
Okay.
I did the first time, but
Yeah.
I didn't went to medical school, obviously.
Well, but you went to the School of Hollywood, so you saw how you could do it with a shoulder.
Yeah, definitely. I connected the point, and actually, then the doctor told me like, if you would have done it right, you probably didn't even needed surgery. So now I know you have to pull
Really?
down and then twist and then pull up.
It's like the child cap on medicine.
Yeah, sort of.
The opposite direction, but yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't like to need to use that knowledge in the future.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but yeah, like it was life telling me, and I started to think and think and think, and started to noticing things. And at the end of the day, it's like for me, maybe, and this is a common thing throughout my life, I trust people,
Mm-hmm.
and many people have tell me that you need to not be so childish about that because, well, people,
Take advantage of it.
yeah, they can and everything, and I always trust people mainly because I know that, I don't know, if someone hurts you or something, they don't do it to hurt you. They're probably struggling through something in life, and they have their agenda,
Yeah.
and it's like maybe you're just interfering in their agenda. So I forgive people.
Mm.
It's like I know they didn't do it to harm me. They were just more important themselves
Mm-hmm.
than others. But I think that life, they take care of everything, and everything comes back. What goes around comes around.
I'm
What you give.
I completely agree. And I feel like so, and I'm not gonna take any credit for Beto, and I'm not gonna take any credit for you having met Cameron or any of that. But what I would like to say is that maybe the way that, not the brand Parejo, but that how you met Cameron and stuff maybe came about because I always wanted to give back to people in agave, and without ever wanting anything back. So why I say this is, thank you,
You're welcome.
that a bunch of friends apparently are all now working together, which is a great thing. Yeah, with Parejo, you got Arik and things happened there with what he was involved with, and then Cameron comes on board, great guy, and then Beto, he's fine, but no, Beto's great, and somehow you all connect. And this idea for Parejo, had you, because you're good with marketing, logos, photography, had you already had the word and the concept already figured out by the time that you started talking to these guys?
Okay, so two interesting things, and you talked about amazing people right now. I've always been so jealous that Beto got to meet you
Okay.
and Cameron first, then me. But
Thanks.
but I met Arik way back when I started Clande,
Mhm.
and Arik wanted Clande, and he wanted it really bad.
Oh,
And he
I didn't know
never
that.
forgave me that we never went with him.
That's a good cut. I didn't know that.
Yeah. He's such a great guy. I
Yeah.
believe he's so. If you surround yourself with great people,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna do great stuff.
Yes.
That's why I surround myself with great producers.
Yeah.
So Arik, like I was like, so it's rarely you get a second chance in your life. Like, and I started like
that's how it
telling
happened?
him, and we started talking and everything. He was starting a new company, Lot One Brands, which is an amazing family to be a
collection of
part
stuff.
of.
Yeah.
They have an amazing catalog. They so happen to have Parejo there, but they're great guys.
Yeah.
And I'm fortunate enough to have great people representing amazing people.
Mm-hmm.
So it was such a natural fit.
I love that.
Yeah. And so at the end of the day, it's like those were the right people
Mm-hmm.
at the right moment.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, for example, sharing with you, and this third one, this is again bienvenido, but this has a twist to it,
Okay.
which gonna take me into a story.
And just for the record, for people who can't taste, obviously, the nose on this is completely different
Yeah.
than the previous.
So this is also a lechuguilla,
Oh.
but this is an ensemble. Even though they do not use that word over there,
Mm-hmm.
we're using it because people here know it better, and
Yeah.
this is better to communicate what we're doing. So, long story short, going back to that day in the Binata Viembe when he was saying that he didn't have agaves, and those were agaves,
Mm-hmm.
and you sort of tease people about that, about fermentation. So, if many people don't know, we're not able to produce Sotol year long.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Out of respect. Because during the rain season, that this is going to be, depending on the year, but end of May, all the way towards September, fermentation stops. It doesn't ferment well.
Mm.
And the yield, it goes really, 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 really small.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were able to get 125 bottles per distillation, it's now going to go down to 60 bottles.
Mm.
So out of respect, the producers always stop. Out of respect, we also stop.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've noticed is that the Fernandez produced year long. And I always thought that Madera was a magical place. Going back to what you were saying to me, like you started to learn all of these things. So I was like, well, Madera,
Yeah.
the weather or something, it's magical. They
Mhm.
are able to produce year long. Well, no. The thing is, Bienvenido learned from listening to Mother Nature. So they've always been keen into listening, smelling, tasting, and everything.
Mm.
So what Bienvenido learned, probably from his grandfather, is that when the rain season starts, they start to incorporate a little bit of agave for fermentation purposes.
Mm-hmm.
So even though there's sometimes more Sotol, Basidium, than agave, it's still called Lechuguilla because that's how Bienvenido calls it.
Yeah.
So for me, again, cultural heritage. He calls it Lechuguilla, it's a Lechuguilla. Then, at the peak of the height, he switches over to 100% agave because that's going to be more efficient for fermentation.
Mm.
Then he switches back to ensembles. And then when the cold weather hits for the first time, he switches back to Sotol.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is the seasonality that, again, it's from years of experience of listening to Mother Nature.
And we don't, in the States, we don't abide by that. There's mangoes produce, once a year. There's not a ton in the States, but we want them all year round, right? And so then you ship this subpar product and you do this. And the same thing, the French actually respect the land in that way too, right? So like, it's not growing right now. You don't get it. That's just how that goes.
So this is a 70% 70% Maguey de Cerro, 30% Dasylirium Willery.
Really? It's really beautiful. The mintiness and the purple. I get this purple
from the Willery.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of wild spearmint over there.
Oh, okay.
And I get that like endemic.
It tingles
spearmint.
like the spearmint. Yeah,
exactly. You always get, and you get a little bit of a lactic flavor to it.
A touch. I like. I get a violet flavor. Purple.
Oh yeah, like the violet little cough drops or something like that that they do.
But it's not medicinal. It's just kind of nice.
No, yeah. They do it in France, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I get those.
Yeah, creme de violet is one that they do. So I love that we finally get to sit down and do this after so many years, and I feel like so privileged that I got to be maybe the one that brings the story really to the forefront, and I love it for a lot of reasons. But none more than the fact that it's people that I really, really appreciate. Just like you said, Arak, I love Cameron, I love Beto's fine, I'm gonna keep saying that. Give it a try. No, but he's been great. And I remember the first time I went to his house, And he was just so willing to share all this stuff. And then, of course, he's been in my house sharing a lot of stuff. And so, in a way, I consider it a family, the agave family, the Sotol
Definitely.
family. And I think you really are articulated. I'm so glad that you're the one that gets to talk about this, brand, because you've been involved with it. You've been involved with Sotol and these makers for a very long time. And I think it's your moment, you know? I say that as if I'm like an AR guy trying to sign a band or whatever. Like, I'm finally seeing you on stage. Like, yeah, I think he's got what it takes. I think we're going to get him into the major label and whatnot. I got 2 questions left for you. Go.
Before your questions, like, first of all, going back to that time you were with Beto in his house, he was telling me actually yesterday, and he was like, I brought out a Sotol de Aroma from Lalo when he was there. And I was like, I opened it because I wanted to share something amazing with Mike.
Yeah.
And only because I opened it, that bottle is gone now. But that's the best spirit I've ever tried in my life. And it was like, I opened it because Mike was there in my house.
Yeah, that's so lovely, right? And I would do the same thing.
And the other story I always tell, well, it's not a story, it's a disclosure. I always say, people, I am not an expert. I'm just starting to learn this, but I'm fortunate enough that I work with alcohol. Yeah. So the more you drink, the more it seems like I know what I'm talking about. So that's why I brought some booze,
That's a scientific principle. The more I drink, the more charming everyone else becomes.
Oh, yeah.
Or the more charming I think I am. But we'll see. We'll see about that. But tonight we had, well, actually, I'm going to ask you this in the opposite order. So, knowing that you love music and that you're a guitar player, retired or not, let's say you're sipping this Lechuguilla with any musician that's not Jimi Hendrix, alive or deceased. Who would you love to sip a Sotol with?
I would go towards Miles Davis, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Miles. Right now, living probably Thundercat, even though he doesn't drink anymore.
Yeah.
Or Kamasi Washington, which I was getting over here. But yeah, those guys would be.
That would be very, very cool.
David Bowie.
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
Bowie stopped drinking though too. Do you know that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's also dead. So if I'm gonna make the fantasy,
great point.
He's gonna be
he can't
alive
die
and
again.
drinking.
He can drink a bunch. It's fine.
Exactly.
Rest in peace, David Bowie.
Yeah.
Last question is tonight. I'll see you at this tasting at Tetro. What do we have in store? The core lines. You got all these.
It's gonna be a flight. They're going to try 3 different amazing things. Hopefully, people are gonna love them. They're also going to do probably. I don't know. I'm gonna probably tease you, but they're going to do a cocktail with the Cedrosanum from Bienvenido. Cool. Interesting story, also really short one. Yeah. But Cedrosanum. Bienvenido usually didn't work with that plant. Parejo, as you've seen, is bringing new expressions, new things that you didn't find in Clande because we're growing. So this is like the continuation of Clande, sort of. And so it's going to be a flight of 2 different Sotols, 1 Lechuguilla, and probably the cocktail.
I love it. These are all concept albums.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we got these kind of unique themes. All right, thanks so much for sharing.
Thank
I
you,
can't
Mike, for
wait to see. Yeah, it's been really a pleasure. We'll talk more later. Cheers.
Cheers.
There we have it. Jorge Caldera of Parejo Sotol from Chihuahua. As he says, these sotoleros are like family, extended family. He talks about bringing bottles and backpacks, liquor to lips, so to speak, crashing on couches, the indie rock lifestyle, but in this case of the music for Sotol. I get that, you know, and I see a lot of rumors and that Sotol will be the next big thing. And like I said at the top of the show, I don't think so, despite how amazing it will be. But the work that Jorge is doing with Parejo Sotol really does offer economic relief and economic enrichment to families making Sotol in Chihuahua. And that's really the story here. And the thing that really kind of interests me and bothers me to an extent, I mean, we know how social media is. We know how certain personalities are louder than others. In the world of Sotol, there are really 2 or 3 people that I know that talk about Sotol. One protests for themselves, not for the category, and the other has been an industry veteran for a while, had a lot of coverage. But the thing is Jorge, in a sense, has gotten written out of the history of Sotol as it comes down to being imported into the United States and bringing liquor to lips. So finally, he gets to tell his story. And this is something that's really important to me because after this conversation, they had their launch here in Austin, Texas at Tetro, a nice mezcaleria. And I talked to him more, talked to his partner, Beto, whom I've known some time as well. And Jorge never got the spotlight, but he deserved it. He's put in so much work, and I'm really happy and elated to say that we are friends and we text each other about horror movies like you do if we happen to be friends that text each other. So Jorge, thank you so much for taking the time out, and thank you so much for continuing to talk about horror movies with me, among other things. So thanks everybody for listening to Show to V with Mike G. No matter what kind of cooking show you have in the background in the other room because you can't handle quiet in your house, or if you're thinking, I don't know what movie I should go see this weekend, maybe Den of Thieves 2, or maybe not, please keep dancing.